The old factory loomed before me, its brick walls weathered by decades of neglect. Broken windows stared down like hollow eyes, and rust had claimed every metal surface in sight. This was my inheritance, my parents' idea of a cruel joke. Have fun with your pile of junk. My brother Michael's words still rang in my ears from the will reading earlier that morning. He and my sister Alexandra had received the bulk of our parents' fortune, luxury homes, investment portfolios, and control of the family's thriving tech company. Meanwhile, I got this abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. I stood there in my business suit, feeling ridiculously overdressed for the task of exploring this industrial ruin. The key felt heavy in my hand, an ancient iron thing that looked like it belonged in a museum rather than a modern lock. My name is Emma Carter, and at 32, I had just become the proud owner of absolutely nothing. Or so they thought. The lock protested with an ear-piercing screech as I turned the key. The heavy door groaned open, releasing a rush of stale air. Dust particles danced in the beam of sunlight that penetrated the gloom. The interior was a maze of old machinery, conveyor belts frozen in time, and shadows that seemed to hold secrets. This factory had belonged to my grandfather, Thomas Carter. He'd started his business here in the 1960s, manufacturing specialized industrial equipment. But after his death 15 years ago, my parents had abandoned it, focusing instead on their newfound success in the tech industry. They never talked about what Grandpa Thomas had built here. In fact, they seemed almost eager to forget this place existed. I pulled out my phone and switched on its flashlight, sweeping the beam across the factory floor. Despite the years of abandonment, there was something almost majestic about the space. The machinery, though covered in dust, looked remarkably well preserved. Grandpa had always been meticulous about maintenance, a trait my parents had mocked as old-fashioned. "What a waste of time," my father would say. "The future is in software, not rusty machines." As I explored deeper into the building, memories of childhood visits flooded back. Grandpa Thomas bringing me here on Saturday mornings, patiently explaining how each machine worked. The pride in his voice when he talked about precision engineering and quality craftsmanship. I had been the only grandchild who showed any interest. Michael was too busy with his video games, and Alexandra considered factories beneath her. The beam of my flashlight caught something unusual, a door nearly hidden behind an old filing cabinet. I remembered this door from my childhood visits, but Grandpa had always said it was just a storage closet. Now, looking at it with adult eyes, I noticed something odd. The door's lock was far more sophisticated than anything else in the building, and despite the general decay around it, this door and its frame appeared well maintained. My hands trembled slightly as I approached. The filing cabinet was heavy, but years of hitting the gym before work had given me strength my family never expected. It took some effort, but I managed to push it aside enough to reach the door. There was no keyhole. Instead, I found a panel with numbered buttons, now revealed by my flashlight. A keypad in a factory this old. That made no sense. Unless. I closed my eyes, thinking back to my last conversation with Grandpa Thomas, just days before his death. He had been unusually serious that day, his usual warmth replaced by an urgent intensity. "Remember the numbers, Emma," he had said, gripping my hand. "Your birthday, the day we first came here, the year this factory opened, remember them." At the time, I thought it was just the ramblings of a sick old man. Now, standing before this hidden keypad, his words took on new meaning. With shaking fingers, I punched in the numbers, 419 for my April 19th birthday, then 726 for July 26th, the first time he brought me to the factory, and finally 1964, the year he opened for business. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft click echoed in the silence, and the door swung inward. My flashlight revealed a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The air that drifted up was cool and dry, carrying a faint scent of paper and metal. Taking a deep breath, I began my descent. The basement was nothing like I expected. Instead of a musty storage room, I found myself in what appeared to be a pristine office, frozen in time. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, each meticulously labeled. A large drafting table dominated the center of the room, its surface covered with blueprints held down by brass paperweights. But what caught my eye was the envelope propped against an old desk lamp. On it, in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting, was my name. My hands shook as I opened it, unfolding the pages inside. "My dearest Emma, If you're reading this, you found my secret office, just as I always knew you would. You were the only one who truly understood what we built here, not just machines, but dreams made real through precision and patience. What your parents never understood, what your siblings never cared to learn, was that this factory holds secrets worth far more than they imagine. The blueprints you see around you represent my life's work, including designs I never had the chance to patent. Look in the red filing cabinet marked Project Phoenix. Inside you'll find everything you need to understand why I kept this hidden, and why I made sure this factory would pass to you. They may think they've given you nothing, Emma, but in truth, I've left you everything. All my love, Grandpa Thomas. My heart pounding, I turned to the red filing cabinet. Inside, I found folders filled with detailed technical drawings, mathematical calculations, and what appeared to be designs for a revolutionary type of industrial automation system, one that solved problems still plaguing manufacturers today. But it was the last folder that made my breath catch. Inside were patent applications, never filed, for technologies that were decades ahead of their time. Clean energy solutions, efficient recycling processes, manufacturing innovations that could revolutionize entire industries. And alongside them, a notebook containing detailed market analyses, potential client lists, and implementation strategies, all meticulously updated until just days before his death. Grandpa hadn't just been tinkering in his old factory, he had been preparing for the future, a future he had planned for me. I sank into his old office chair, my mind racing with possibilities. The factory above wasn't just a rusty old building. It was a testing ground, a proof of concept for ideas that could be worth millions. Ideas that were now mine. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. "Enjoying your Ted and his farm, sis?" I looked around the secret office at the wealth of innovation surrounding me and smiled. They thought they had given me nothing. They thought this was a joke, a final way to show me my place in the family hierarchy. But Grandpa Thomas had known better. He had seen something in me that my parents and siblings had missed. And now, sitting in his hidden office surrounded by his brilliant legacy, I knew exactly what I had to do. I pulled out my laptop and began to work. The first step would be finding investors who could appreciate what I had discovered. Then I would need engineers, developers, people who could help turn these designs into reality. My family thought they had buried me in a worthless old factory. They didn't realize they had given me the foundation for an empire. As I worked late into the night, surrounded by my grandfather's brilliant designs, I thought about the look on their faces when they realized what they had given away. But that would come later. 6 months after discovering my grandfather's secret office, I stood in the factory's main floor, now humming with new life. The rusty machines had been cleared out, replaced by state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment. Every surface gleamed under fresh LED lighting, and the once broken windows now sparkled with energy-efficient smart glass. Getting here hadn't been easy. The first month was spent meticulously documenting every blueprint, every note, every scrap of my grandfather's genius. I practically lived in that basement office, surviving on coffee and determination. My family, meanwhile, hadn't bothered to check on me once. The breakthrough came when I met James Chen, a venture capitalist known for his interest in sustainable technology. I had approached his firm with carefully selected pieces of my grandfather's designs, just enough to prove their value without revealing everything. "Miss Carter," he had said, leaning back in his chair after my presentation, "do you realize what you have here?" I did. Grandpa's automation systems weren't just innovative, they were revolutionary. His design solved critical problems in manufacturing efficiency while simultaneously reducing energy consumption and waste. In today's world of environmental consciousness and rising production costs, they were worth a fortune. James's firm offered $5 million in initial funding. It was a fraction of what the technology was worth, but it was enough to start. I maintained majority control and insisted on keeping my grandfather's name on every patent. The day renovations began on the factory, Michael drove by in his Ferrari, probably expecting to find me wallowing in dust and failure. Instead, he saw construction crews and shiny new equipment being delivered. His call came that evening. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. "You're wasting money fixing up that worthless building." I let him talk himself out, then simply said, "Time will tell, brother," and hung up. Alexandra was next, showing up unannounced in a cloud of designer perfume. "Daddy's furious," she announced, picking her way across the factory floor in inappropriate heels. He says you're embarrassing the family name by playing entrepreneur in this dump. I shoved her to the door without responding. Let them think I was failing. Let them underestimate me one last time. 3 months after securing funding, Carter Innovative Technologies launched its first product line, an automated manufacturing system that reduced energy consumption by 60% while increasing production efficiency by 40%. Orders started pouring in from companies desperate to cut costs and meet new environmental regulations. The day we landed our first major contract, $12 million from one of the largest manufacturers in Asia, I received an unexpected visitor. My father stood in the factory's new reception area, looking uncomfortably out of place. "I hear you've been making some noise in the industry," he said stiffly. "Would you like a tour?" I offered, maintaining a professional demeanor. He followed me through the facility, his expression growing increasingly troubled as he saw the scale of what I'd built. When we reached the main production floor, where our systems were being assembled, he finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Where'd you get these designs?" I led him down to the basement office, now restored to its former glory. Grandpa's photos lined the walls, along with framed copies of our new patents, all bearing both our names. "Your father," I said quietly, "was a genius. He saw the future of manufacturing decades ago. He just needed someone who would listen and understand." My father's face went pale as he looked around the office. He never showed me any of this. "Did you ever ask?" The question hung in the air between us. That evening, I received a call from my mother. "Your father's very upset," she began, but I cut her off. "I'm rather busy, Mom. The company's going public next month, and there's a lot to prepare." The silence on the other end was deafening. Going public. But how much is the company worth? "Current valuation is around $40 million, I said casually. "But that's conservative. Our latest contracts should push it higher." I could almost hear her calculating her lost opportunity. After all, they could have had this if they'd bothered to look past their prejudices and actually see what Grandpa had built. The IPO announcement made headlines in the business world. Carter Innovative Technologies revolutionizes manufacturing with green tech solutions. My siblings couldn't ignore me anymore. The day before the company went public, they both showed up at my office. "We're family," Michael began, trying to sound sincere. "We should work together. Maybe I could join the board." Alexandra nodded eagerly, "And I could handle public relations. After all, I have so many connections." I let them finish, then smiled, the same condescending smile they'd given me at the well reading. "I don't think so. But you're welcome to buy shares once we go public. At market price, of course." "You can't shut us out," Michael protested. "This should be a family company." "It is," I replied. "It's Grandpa's and mine. The family had their chance. They chose software over rusty machines, remember." After they left, I went down to the basement office. I kept it exactly as Grandpa had left it, though now it served as my private retreat rather than a secret workspace. Sitting in his old chair, I pulled out the letter he'd left me, its pages now worn from frequent reading. The next day, Carter Innovative Technologies went public. The stock price doubled within hours. Business channels buzzed with the story of the hidden industrial genius whose granddaughter had brought his innovations to life. My parents watched their tech company's market share shrink as investors flocked to the future we were building. A month later, I received an invitation to the annual family Christmas party. For the first time, it would be held at my house. The host had insisted. Apparently, success commanded respect even from those who had dismissed you. I stood in Grandpa's office, holding the invitation. On his desk sat a framed photo of us together in this very factory, his hand on my shoulder, both of us smiling at some shared joke. Next to it was a more recent picture, me cutting the ribbon at our factory's grand reopening. "We did it, Grandpa," I whispered. The factory hummed above me, its rhythms as familiar now as my own heartbeat. In the end, my inheritance hadn't been just a building or even the blueprints. It had been my grandfather's belief in me, his trust that I would understand what he had created and carry it forward. My phone buzzed. Another stock alert. Carter Innovative Technologies had just hit a new high. I smiled, thinking of my family scrutinizing every uptick, finally realizing what they had given away. But I had something better than their regret. I had built something meaningful, something that would last. My grandfather's legacy lived on, not just in the technology we created, but in the way we created it, with patience, precision, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. They had given me a rusty old factory, thinking it was worthless. Instead, they had given me everything I needed to prove them wrong. As I walked through my factory that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold through those once broken windows, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Success, I had learned, wasn't about proving your worth to others. It was about believing in yourself enough to prove them wrong. Somewhere, I knew Grandpa Thomas was smiling.